What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Daily Betslip. I'm your host for today, Reed Wallach. Alongside me is Peter Dewey. Loaded Wednesday night of sports. We got NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, MLB regular season with the Yankees and Blue Jays, which we're going to get into. But before we start with anything, Peter, how are you? How is your Wednesday? What are you looking forward to tonight?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the NBA games tonight, Reed. I'm really excited.
Shocker.
Coming off a couple rough days in the NBA, so need to get back on track today. I think like yesterday's games again, tough to top the Warriors Grizzlies series, but I thought we got a good Mavs Suns game in game one. Thought the Heat are, I think they're a finals contender at this point, so I'm excited to see how they play in game two. And then, we still got some good baseball. My Yankees are streaking. So, and your Mets have been playing well. I know they lost today, but I was going to say this. I said this to you last night on Twitter. Um, you and I, basketball season didn't go our way, but baseball
Nope.
season, it's coming up all us. So why not?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We are going to get into some Mets and Yankees talk in a little bit. And you mentioned Mavs Suns also, of course, if you want to chime in, our game of the night is Mavs Suns. The community pool has been a little shaky so far. I believe it's 2 or 3 losses in a row. We're going to try and get back on track. Make sure you vote on Twitter. It's on our Twitter page at BetSided. On the YouTube poll, make sure you're chiming in. We are betting Suns, Mavs, side, total, whatever you want. It's up to you guys. But before we start with anything else, let's go to a bad beat last night because, P, I know neither of us are big hockey guys, but I love playoff hockey. I think it's like the intensity is just to another level. And we're both tri-state area guys, so we keep our eye on the Rangers. I have a lot of Rangers friends. I was watching for amusement, but this was not amusement. This was almost excruciating. Rangers lose game one, and I don't know if I'll call it a bad beat, but it will qualify for the bad beat segment because Rangers lose game one to the Penguins. They lose about minus 150 favorites. They're now underdogs in the series to the Penguins, of course, down 1-0. But the sequence of events that happened in this game last night was like a 4 and change game. Rangers score, break a 3-3 tie with about 4 minutes left in the third period. Goal, I don't even get interference. Maybe you could shine some light on this, but looked like a clean play to me. Goal is called back for interference. Ends up going to 3 overtimes. The Penguins bring in their backup goalie, Luis Domingue, who looked at where did he come from? He was talking about after the game, he ordered in food during the second overtime intermission. He comes in and holds down the fort. Penguins win in triple overtime. I mean, that's got to suck if you're the Rangers. But Pete, can you shine some light for me on this goalie interference fiasco that happened? It seemed like no one really was that shocked by it. I was shocked.
Yeah, I was too, because I don't really like the whole concept. I think the best explanation we got today was from our own Ian McMillan. He said it's kind of like pass interference in the NFL. And I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess. But like the thing in hockey, I feel like guys are always fighting in front of the net anyway. Like they're trying to deflect the puck right in front of the goalie. Like somebody bumps into the goalie, I feel like almost at all times. So I mean, sure, they clearly it was the right call because they made it, but definitely if you were on the Rangers, that's just a brutal way to lose. Especially then you have to watch the 3 overtimes. Like they think that might be the worst part is if you were really invested into the game, you stayed up for 3 overtimes and they still lost. Like that's rough.
Yeah, so I went because, I obviously have my 3 TVs set up, so I didn't have any volume on the Rangers game. I had volume on Bucks Celtics. I'm watching this all transpire. I go, oh, like goal, great. Like, Ranger, I'm rooting for the Rangers. I got a bunch of friends that are Ranger fans. And I'm sitting there looking, I'm like, oh, like great. Like Rangers, they're probably going to go on to win now. And I'm just watching like a review and but I'm again watching without sound. And I'm seeing like, okay, like I don't know what they're reviewing. My group chats are going, is it interference? I don't know. That's close. I'm like, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. That looks just like a clean hockey. Like, what are we arguing? And then, so I guess it's not pass interference though, because they looked at it and they determined that it was interference.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a brutal beat. Obviously, you laid some juice with the Rangers minus 150. Mm-hmm. Now the updated odds, the Penguins minus 170 favorites over at our sponsor WinBet. Rangers plus 140. It does seem like this is going to be a tight series, though. Either way, we'll see. I do not know the game 2 market, but obviously, Rangers going to need to get that one. I feel like they're going to bounce back, though, and get this. Obviously, Penguins might be down their starting goalie now who exited in the second overtime. So if they have to count on Domingue again, we'll see if he could, rally the troops one more time. But, that's our bad beat segment for today. Rough pill to swallow, though. if you are a Rangers fan. But we'll stick in New York, though. Obviously, we're two
Yeah, why
local
not?
guys. Let's go New York baseball because obviously the Mets did lose today, but we're going to stick with this segment. We're not going to let that, there are 162 games. We don't need to get bogged down in it. But the two best teams in baseball by win percentage, they both hail from New York. You're a big New York Yankee fan. I'm a big New York Met fan. Let's bask in some New York baseball real quick. Pete, I'll start with you. Yankees off to a hot start, of course. They just took they have a third game against the Blue Jays, but they took the first two from the Jays. Now up 3.5 games, 11-game win streak. Aaron Judge, potential MVP candidate. Nestor Cortez Jr., potential Cy Young candidate. What has made this Yankees team go to start the season?
Yeah, the first thing is health. I mean, you look at the Yankees the last few years, and they have not been able to stay healthy. Aaron Hicks, not the most important player on the Yankees, but he's barely played some of the last 2 seasons. So to have him actually in the lineup every day playing center field, you can move some guys around. You can give Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton some days off. And then Anthony Rizzo, I mean, Brian Cashman might have committed highway robbery getting him on a 2-year, $32 million deal. He has been fantastic to start this year. And you mentioned Aaron Judge. 8 home runs in his last 10 games, hitting 357 over that stretch, slugging almost 1,000. That's a wild number. So that, and on top of that, the Yankees have the second best ERA in baseball right now. I think the last few seasons, you look at the Yankees coming into the season, you're like, the pitching staff, like they have Garrett Cole, and then it's a lot of questions after. Luis Severino's been good. Jamison Tyone was great last night. Like you mentioned, Nestor Cortez kind of came out of nowhere at the end of last year, was fantastic for them, continued into this year. Jordan Montgomery's pitched well. So things are looking up for the Yankees. Obviously, long season, and they've played the second easiest schedule in baseball, but they've also beaten everybody. So the way, like, you look at it, they don't make the schedule. Like, they just got to go out there and win games. They won 11 straight at this point. Last year, they did not beat up on bad teams. They were 11-8 against the Orioles, 3-3 against the Tigers, 3-4 against the Angels. Just a couple of the teams they struggled with that didn't make the playoffs. This year, it's looked like a lot different team. So there's definitely still some concerns. I mean, it's a very similar team that we've seen the last couple of years. It's kind of flamed out in the playoffs, but at the same time, you got to take the hot start. It gives you a lot of cushion going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you this because, again, I talked to you about the Yankees. I have Yankee friends. It felt like this season there was very low expectations. It's definitely much lower than I would say the last half decade. It feels like it was always World Series or bust, World Series or bust. This year, you guys don't end up firing Aaron Boone. You don't really make the big splash in free agency, and it seemed like the team was kind of growing sour, I guess the word, over like Brian Cashman and obviously Boone. Is the lower expectation making this season, or at least this hot start, that much more rewarding and that much more fun? That like you went in maybe like, all right, maybe we'll compete for a wild card. The Rays are great. The Blue Jays look like a wagon. Now all of a sudden the Yankees are off to this hot start. Are you now more bought in? Were you maybe more bullish heading into the year? What'd you go from your preseason expectation?
Yeah, I honestly was low on this team in the preseason. I am not the biggest Brian Cashman guy. You look at like his track record, and I won't go deep into it, but outside of the Aroldis Chapman for Gleyber Torres trade and then re-signing Chapman, he has whiffed time and time and time again with big acquisitions. Obviously, the Rizzo trade at the deadline last year has worked out to this point. So when the Yankees' only move really was trading for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, it was just kind of like, okay, I mean, he's a great defensive shortstop, but where are we going from here? Like, how are we going to improve on a team that like struggled the entire season last year, snuck into the wild card, and then got dominated? Like, it just felt like they did nothing. But at the same time, maybe this was kind of their vision the whole time. Like, they finally have gotten everybody healthy at the same time. Like, we're finally seeing Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, I think, what they expected them to be when they acquired Giancarlo Stanton. And, the pitching is started to come around. And I mentioned this to Ben the other day. I believe it was on Daily Betslip. The Yankees have lucked out because of the expanded rosters. Their bullpen is even deeper now, and it's probably better than it's been in, a few years. And that's saying something because they normally have one of the better bullpens of baseball. So they're putting themselves in a position where hopefully they don't have to burn out some of these guys. But it's definitely made the season more rewarding, but it's still in the back of my mind. I'm like, the regression's got to be coming at some point because this is like the same team we've seen the last few years. But who knows? Maybe Cashman figured it out. But I do have to ask you about your Mets. because the fact the Mets have gotten out to this fast of a start without Jacob deGrom
Yep.
has to be like, holy crap, we might be like really good this year.
Yeah, so me and my Mets fan friends, we know April's always great. We started this year counting half wins for April, and the losses still count for one because the Mets always get off to a hot start and they always break our hearts. But this year does feel a little bit different. It really does. And even without DeGrom, one, like unlike the Yankees, and this isn't a comparison thing, but the Mets did go out and make necessary adjustments to the roster this offseason. They have Steve Cohen, the owner, but they went out and signed Max Scherzer. They went out and got Starling Marte, Eduardo Escobar, guys that are producing in the line of Marcana as well. They went out and made adjustments. For them to get off to a hot start, that kind of validates their offseason moves. Also, bringing in a veteran manager in Buck Showalter. We'll start with the pitching. They have the third best ERA in all of baseball. That's before today where they let up 9 runs. So maybe that jumps up. But 2.99 ERA. And it's not just Scherzer. It's Tyler McGill, who has going into today's start. He ended up having 3 earned, but he had a sub-2 ERA. Carlos Carrasco looks healthy. He just went 8 shutout innings against the Braves last night. David Peterson has stepped in for the DeGrom and made an impact. So the Mets are getting necessary contributions, but at the dish, leading baseball and on-base percentage. They're not necessarily bopping as much, but they're getting on base and they're bringing in runs. Lindor looks like he's confident at the plate. And to me, that's the Buck Showalter effect. I think that he's really empowering these hitters. And they, last year, a lot of times they'd get to the plate and it felt like they were just guessing. They were just standing up there and swinging the bat. They really feels like to me, at least, there's a calculated approach. This is more of like an eye test thing, and that's kind of lazy, but it shows the numbers. They're number 1 on base percentage. There's a calculated approach at the plate, and it really feels like this is a different team. Maybe I'm, sipping too much Kool-Aid, and I know Ben's in the comments saying, which team is most likely to break their fan base heart in October? It is probably the Mets because that's just how the Mets roll, but it does feel like this is a little bit different, and maybe if it's not even this year, it's the next few years. It does feel like this Mets team is starting to turn into something, and they do have an early lead out as the Braves falter, from their World Series hangover. The Phillies look like they're a bit uneven. The Mets have, a very well-rounded team here. They're hitting well. They're pitching well. Edwin Diaz looks like he has his best stuff since he got traded from the Mariners to the Mets. So I'm very bullish on this Mets team. I think that they are going to be able to hold up when the inevitable injury bug hits. And listen, Jacob deGrom, if he comes back in July even, the All-Star break, I'm not rushing him back. There's no need to rush him back.
Yeah.
Come back for the second half of the year. And then all of a sudden, how are you getting past this rotation? Because while McGill is probably going to slow up, you still have Scherzer. You hope Taijuan Walker falls into place. Carlos Carrasco is part of a World Series contending rotation in Cleveland. This team is legit on paper. And as of now, the results are showing on the field. So, are you seeing anything from this Mets team that you think maybe I'm sipping too much Kool-Aid? Do you think that this is a legit team as you look at the NL? Obviously, the Dodgers are still kind of that sleeping giant, but overall, the Mets, you see them as contenders or pretenders?
I think they're a contender for sure. I mean, they're plus 800 right now. They're third at WinBet to win the World Series. I think that's
Popular
a fair
bet too.
Yeah,
public team.
Yeah, but I think it's almost a fair price right now because, like you mentioned, whenever DeGrom comes back, like you go into any playoff series and 2 of the games to start the series are DeGrom, Scherzer. Who else can match that in the National League? Who else can match that in baseball? The Dodgers have great pitching. I don't think they have a 1-2 is like Walker Buehler, Clayton Kershaw is not Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer.
No,
I'm sorry, it's just not. So that to me is like the greatest equalizer. It's like the Mets and the fact that they're getting on base a ton. And this is something I've wanted to see with the Yankees to bring this whole thing full circle is you can hit all the home runs you want, but when your entire offense is predicated on hitting the home run, when you get into playoff baseball and you face the top-notch pitchers who don't give up a ton of home runs, it's going to be harder to win games. You need guys who are going to work counts, get walks, get singles, get on base. I love that baseball has embraced the fact that the home run is cool, but at the same time, it's launch angle and exit velocity and all this stuff. It does not matter if you can't get on base. If you're just making outs and hitting flyouts, it doesn't matter. So the fact that the Mets are doing that, I think I agree with you on the Buck Showalter front. I think that having a guy who's been around the block before, it does matter. It matters a ton. And so the Mets, if DeGrom is healthy, which is obviously it's a huge
big
if because you don't know. But like, if they get into a playoffs and you're telling me they like say they win the NL East and you got 5 games and 2 of those games are DeGrom and Scherzer, like I mean and then one of them's coming back for Game 5, like you can't ask for
It's
anything
tough.
more. It's going to be so hard to knock them out. It's going to take another team being fantastic on offense, which honestly in the National League, you look at the contenders. Outside of the Dodgers, maybe the Padres. Like offensively, I don't think the Giants are there. The Brewers certainly are not there. So I feel like the Mets contenders for sure. And the injuries, baseball is tough because it's such a long season. So, it's hard to say that, oh, well, if they don't get hurt because it's inevitable somebody's going to. But right now, like you just look at, like you said, when you look at that roster on paper, they're going to be a tough out in a playoff series.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt having the richest owner in baseball who will just buy whatever is necessary at the deadline to bring a World Series to Citi Field. So that always helps. But we're going to stick with baseball, but we are going to transition into best bets because Pete, I know you have in your Yankees against the Blue Jays, you are looking at a player prop, a pitcher prop. What are you seeing on the dime before we talk about the NBA playoffs tonight?
Yeah, so the prop I'm going with, and I tweeted this one out today. I love this prop. I'm taking Yusei Kikuchi under 4.5 strikeouts against the Yankees today. And the Yankees, like in previous seasons, they were one of the worst teams in terms of striking out. This year, they're middle of the pack. They only strike out 8.5 times per game. But this is more of a fading Kikuchi spot here because he's been horrendous to start this year in terms of like giving length and striking guys out. You look at some of his numbers so far this year. He's pitched 4 starts. He only has thrown 14 2/3 innings. He's gotten through the 4th inning 1 time. He finished with 5 innings pitched in that game.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, has not had over 4 strikeouts in a game. And you look at some of the advanced numbers from Baseball Savant and StatCast. He is in the 17th percentile in hard hit percentage and 27th percentile in strikeout percentage. Now he's facing a Yankees team that's number 3 in the league in OPS, number 1 in home runs. They have a ton of big bats in the lineup and a lot of guys who hit lefties well. Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gleyber Torres, who's been really coming on hot as of late. So just feels like a horrible matchup for him. He only lasted, I believe, 3 1/3 in his first start against the Yankees, only had 2 strikeouts. So fading him here, I'm shocked that this number's at 4.5 because he just hasn't pitched enough into games to actually get to it at any point.
Yeah, I like this. Getting teams that could hit lefties well, like a team like the Yankees, the White Sox last year. I remember that was a very profitable angle.
Yeah.
Just basically blind betting the White Sox against any lefties. I like this idea. And this is it's a different type of way than just betting the Yankees because eventually this winning streak is going to come to an end. You almost get like buyer beware of the Yankees. So I do like this idea. Get Kikuchi out of the game early. And he hasn't been finding that strikeout pitch. So I like this bet a ton. I like the under 4.5. And yeah, I mean, let's see if your Yankees can keep it rolling. I mean, how far can this winning streak go? Who's up after the Blue Jays? Who are the Yankees playing?
Oh man, that's a good question. I gotta look that one up. They go Blue Jays, and then they go Rangers at home, and then
okay. So I mean, the Rangers are one of the worst teams in baseball as well. So maybe this winning streak could get to 15. We'll just say maybe the Yankees just won't lose again. We'll just see how long.
You never know at this point.
Yeah, at this point,
I thought they were going to lose. The whole last week, I've been telling myself I bet on them 1 time on the money line, and other than that, I've been telling myself don't do it. They're going to lose tonight, and they just don't lose.
Yeah, they just don't lose anymore. But anyway, let's transition NBA tonight. We obviously have a pair of game 2s. I think maybe as of now, at least it's trending in the less compelling series compared to what we obviously saw last night. But maybe, hey, game 2, things turn around. We're going to start in South Beach, though. Heat Sixers. The Heat, obviously massive favorites as the Sixers still wait for Joel Embiid to come back. Heat 8-point favorites, minus 425 on the money line. Sixers plus 325 over at WinBet, and the total set at 208. So I'm going to go first with my player prop. I know, Pete, you have a player prop, and I have a team total I'm playing. But I'm going to start with Bam Adebayo, over 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I like to call it prop. Pete, I know you are different than me on that one. You don't.
But it's fine.
We all get along. I call it prop. But here's what I'm thinking. The Sixers don't have any big men left without Embiid. Doc Rivers is committed to the DeAndre Jordan bit, and Paul Reed, B-ball Paul, they won't put him in. This is set up for a massive Adebayo game. He crushed his over in this last game. And I know he was battling the quad injury in the first game of the series, the first round against the Hawks, but he does look healthy. And I really like this prod more than maybe just like the points over or something like that, mainly because you're getting that assist. He had 4 in game 1, but he also had a ton more potential assists. That was closer to 7 or 8. So I think we're going to see the Heat not only shoot the ball better. You're going to see Adebayo working as a facilitator more, look for Jimmy Butler a little bit more. So I like Adebayo to go over 33.5 prod. He went way over in game 1. Like I said, he had 38 in game 1. So again, I'm going to keep playing this. I like the matchup. I don't think the Sixers have an answer. I like the Heat kind of roll here, but Pete, I'll turn it over to you for your player props. I know I'm in agreement with you here.
Yeah, I love that Bam play too. Like you said, I like if DeAndre Jordan plays as many minutes as he did in game 1, like Bam is going to eat him alive. And I love B-ball
22 in 17 minutes.
It's horrible. And I love B-ball Paul, but he's just undersized. So like it's a good matchup offensively for Bam. I think Paul Reed gives the Sixers a lot more offensively, and he's definitely a better fit. But yeah, this is the Bam series until Embiid comes back. I'm fading the Sixers because I'm fading Jim Harden, whatever you want to call him. I'm going to call him Jim Harden because he has not looked anything like James Harden of old this season and in these playoffs, taking him under 40.5 points, rebounds, assists. You look at Harden's PRA numbers in the playoffs this year. He's cleared this number only 2 times. And in both of those games, they were outlier assist games. He had 14 assists and 15 assists in those games. I don't see the assist coming as easily for him without Embiid in the lineup. As we talked about, there is no like easy dump it off to Joel Embiid layup. That doesn't happen. Bam Adebayo is one of the best defensive centers in the NBA, maybe the best. I'm not a huge Rudy Gobert fan, so I will maybe give
more
Bam
dynamic for sure
that title. Yeah, he can switch a lot more. And Miami, they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Harden. He only took 4 free throws in game 1. He only took 13 shots. They held him to 4 shots in the second half. He kind of took himself out of the game, basically. And it's because PJ Tucker, Jimmy Butler, Gabe Vincent, all throwing him different looks, all elite defenders. Like Miami also, I've loved that they've gone like all in on Max Strus, a much bigger and more dynamic shooter than Duncan Robinson. So the Sixers haven't been able to like hunt out, and the Hawks couldn't do it with Trae Young either in the last series, like hunt out switches, because Max Strus at 6'6", 6'7" is really not a great matchup for James Harden. He doesn't have the first step burst right now. So I think unless Harden has a crazy scoring game where we see him get to like 30 points, I think he probably goes under this number. He had 9 rebounds in game 1, but he hasn't had over 6 rebounds in another game in the playoffs. So I like the under for him here. I just don't see a scenario where Miami lets him go crazy, especially after what they did to Trae Young in the last series.
Yeah, excellent points all around. I'm also on this James Harden under, so just like chalk that up on our sheet. But I'm with you. I did some work on this also. In the playoffs, he's averaging 33.1 points, rebounds, and assists, and he had 30 in game 1. If you want to go back even further, when he was with the Nets and they played earlier in the season, he had 28 points, rebounds, and assists. So again, this is just a really bad matchup for a James Harden that is just like sapped physically. He doesn't have that burst anymore. And this is a Heat defense that, and this is going to go into my next bet, but this is a Heat team that I don't think played super well in game 1. I don't like, I know they ended up blowing them out, whatever, but like, I think they left a lot of meat on the bone in that game. I think that they are capable. Like if Tyler Herro, like he busted out in the second half and that's great, but the Sixers had a ton of open shots that they missed. Like people are banking on the fact that the Sixers are going to get those looks again and they're going to, some shooting regression, which like fair. But I also think that the Heat defense is actually going to, lock up a little bit more. I think that this is and again, this is why I wasn't interested in like believing in Philly when Embiid went down. Does this team strike you as when the going gets tough, the tough gets going? Like,
No.
Oh, we're down our best player. Like, we're going to rally. This is James Harden and Doc Rivers. So, like, I don't expect a big effort here. I actually see, like, almost a worse output. Like, I'm considering playing some Heat alternate spreads. And, like, obviously I have my bias against Harden, but, like, I also can watch with my eyes. We were just talking about Bam Adebayo. He could switch on to him. I don't see Harden really generating a ton of offense for the Sixers. I think if the Sixers want to win, it has to be more of a maxi game, which, again, that's asking for a lot for a second-year pro against one of the elite defenses in the league. I think you're actually going to see a much better outing from the Heat. And that goes into my, second best bet of the night. And that's the Sixers team total under 100.5. They got to 92. I get that we're expecting that the team is going to shoot better, but I just think that this Heat defense is going to play pissed off basketball. They're going to really try and lock up and also almost kind of like step on them a little bit, try and really blow them out. Like the pace is really slow. I don't expect a ton of open shots. I don't expect Harden to really create. So if we're expecting Harden to be the engine of this offense without Embiid, and we like his under pra, I also like this team total under, because who else is creating for this Heat, for the Sixers team against this Heat defense? So I like the Sixers team total under. I also am on this Harden under pra. Maybe the Sixers hit a few more shots, but I just think pace-wise, you're flirting with like high 90s at most. Yeah. And I also really like the Heat in this game. I think that they're going to blow them out kind of. So I think the Heat, something like 110 to 95 even, something like that, under.
I like that score.
I don't think Harden's going to play that well. We also have one of my favorite narratives, Harden with the day off in Miami and South Beach. We all know how people enjoy South Beach. So maybe we got a hungover Harden out there. So I like this fading the Sixers here. We'll see what happens when they go back to Philly with Embiid potentially back. But to me, what do we see from game one that makes me think that the Sixers could hang in this series? Because
that's the thing.
Heat to me have another gear to hit. I'm not saying that the Heat could like win the finals or anything, but like in this series with a wounded Sixers, do you see anything that makes you think like, oh, the Sixers could hang? Like they could figure this out. Like Doc Rivers has an adjustment.
No, because like the Sixers hung in the first half in game one, and then they just completely fell apart in the second half. Like they were up 1 point, and like, yeah, if they were up one without Embiid on the road in game one at the half, was like, okay, hey, maybe they can hang, and then it just all fell apart, and like Harden kind of got taken out of the game. But you make a great point on the team total under with the pace. Miami was 26th in pace, and the Sixers were 28th in the regular season. Like both of these teams play so slow. They play methodical basketball. What you expect on a James Harden team when he's handling the ball for 15 seconds on a possession. But the issue I have with the Sixers in this game is, like you said, like they missed a lot of open shots. Like who is going to hit these shots? Is it going to be Danny Green? Like Matisse Thybulle's not hitting anything. Tobias Harris actually had a really good game one. And as much as I love Tyrese Maxey is a smaller guard, and we've already talked about Miami has a ton of fantastic individual defenders. And I think when you get into the playoffs, like you need guys who can hold their own one-on-one. Miami is like 5-6 guys like that. So yeah. Tyrese Maxey is never going to have an easy matchup where he's just like switched. Like the easy matchup for Tyrese Maxey is going up against a bigger Tyler Hero if he can get the switch on him. So the Sixers, maybe they hit a couple more threes in this game, but I just don't see the path for them. Like they traded their depth when they traded for James Harden, and it hasn't exactly worked because you're relying on Danny Green, you're relying on Furkan Korkmaz, you're relying on Georges Niang, and those guys are just not going to move the needle for you in a playoff series. Like they may hit a couple big shots, but you can't rely on them to be getting you 10 points every night. So I like the team total under. I think Miami, if anything, if they get up big, they're just going to kind of put this thing on cruise control, which I think would make this an even lower scoring game. So yeah. I don't see it for the Sixers. They're just not the same team offensively without Embiid.
I completely agree. And we will transition into our game of the night segment. I kind of want sound effects, almost like a, yeah. But we got game of the night, Suns Mavs game 2. I think me and you are both a little bit more bullish on getting an entertaining game here. Yeah. But game 2, Suns took game 1, 121 to 114. Maybe a little bit of a misleading score, but we'll preview that game in a sec. But let's set the stage. We got Suns laying 6.5, total at 216 over at WinBet. Suns minus 260 on the money line. Mavs plus 210. Reached out, got some Twitter response on what our viewers are looking forward to or what they're betting in this game. And I guess we'll start with the spread, as we had a tweet come in from Pumpin' Swag 33. He's on the Mavs spread. Mavs obviously 6.5 point dogs. They were 5.5, 6 point underdogs in game 1, kind of teetered there. So a little bit of movement towards the Suns after they squeak out a cover in game 1. Before we get to our best bets, Pete, let's talk, I guess, about Pumpin' Swag's thought on Mavs spread and kind of how you see game 2 going. Do you think the Mavs could cover? They were right there at the end.
They were right there. I was on the Mavs in game 1, and obviously Spencer Dinwiddie missing a wide open corner three kind of cost us the cover there. But I feel like Dallas, they played about as good as they could have played in terms of shooting the ball in game 1. I know Jalen Brunson had a bad game, but the thing that worries me with the Mavs, and the game ended up not being played at the craziest pace, but in the first half, the Suns really tried to speed them up. And Dallas played at the slowest pace in the NBA this season, so they don't like to be sped up. They like to let Luka Doncic kind of do his thing, find some kickouts to Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, and get some easy shots that way. But Phoenix was just kind of running, and they were scoring. They shot over 60% in the first half. And the Mavs were making threes to kind of hang around. I think they ended up only being down 14 at the half, and it felt like they should be down 25. Yeah. I just don't know if that's sustainable. We've seen Maxi Kleber just have night after night where he can't miss from three. At some point, it's just not going to happen. And Luka was fantastic in game 1. They still lost. They needed the late surge of hitting a bunch of shots to kind of even come in any territory of covering. And one thing I want to point out, shout out to our guy Donovan Smoot. Home favorites in game 2 of the playoffs that are 6, 7 or less point favorites are 13-4 against the spread and 15-2 straight up in the last 17 games. The Celtics covered as small home favorites yesterday. I feel like the Mavs, it's a risky bet. You're betting on another huge Luka game. This Suns team, man, they just looked real good in game 1. So I don't hate it. Like I said, I played the Mavs in game 1, but I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get there without another crazy shooting performance.
Yeah, great nugget from Donovan. Pump and Swag 33. I hope you are watching and saw the home favorites obviously crushing just under that 7-point threshold that we were just talking about. But conceptually, I think Dallas can hang around in this series. They shot 16 of 39 from 3. They're playing the math game correctly. They're basically saying we're going to take a bunch of threes. If we hit our threes, we're going to hang in this game and maybe have a chance to win. And, I have Mavs futures. I'm pulling for them. But my biggest concern going into this was the Suns are such an elite executing team in the second half of games, in the fourth quarter, down the stretch. Can the Mavs really win a game if it's late game situation? We need actual offense, not just Luka Doncic step back, nukes. We need real offense. And with Chris Paul and Devin Booker operating, Devin Booker looks, I'd say, pretty healthy. Yeah. I mean, the Suns got whatever they wanted. You said they shot over 60%. It almost didn't. It was light work. They were just going through the motions. We're kind of going to just beat this team up. Maybe Dallas gets into this series when the series flips back to Dallas. Maybe they go off from 3 in one of those games, and maybe it's 2-1 after game 3. It does feel like the Suns are kind of sitting on a big performance, though, right? It feels like the Mavs are going to shoot 9 for 47 from 3, and the Suns might just absolutely run them off the floor. Win by 25 in the game is not in doubt. Luka gets pulled in the fourth because everyone's saying to me he's laboring, he doesn't look healthy. Guy had 45, 9, and 8. He made it look easy. So I'm with you. I think we're kind of in agreement on this one that we both kind of lean towards Phoenix. We both think that Dallas could hang in theory, but this one might set up for a big Phoenix performance. But yeah, definitely an interesting game, an entertaining game for sure. I think definitely more entertaining than the Miami game. So let's start there. What do you got on this game? What are you betting? You said you're kind of iffy on the spread, so maybe you're looking in the player prop department.
Yeah, I have 2 props. I'll start with the first one. It's actually on the Mavs side. I'm taking Dorian Finney-Smith over 12.5 points. It's minus 110. It's minus 110 over a win bet. Dorian Finney-Smith has been fantastic in these playoffs. He's averaging 13.4 points per game. He's also cleared this line in 5 of 7 playoff games. The thing I love from Dorian Finney-Smith is he's going to play 40 minutes because Dallas needs him. He's their best defender probably on the wing. Him and Reggie Bullock is pretty close, but I like DFS a lot. So they're going to have him playing a ton of minutes. And Luka has done a great job, and you saw it in game 1 since he's come back in the playoffs of he gets to the line, he draws so much attention. There are so many easy looks for these Mavs guys. And like you said, they're playing the math game. They're taking a lot of threes. They're also taking good threes. the thing that concerns me about the Mavs potentially covering is like if they just have an off shooting night, like it's over. Like there is no other way for them to stay in the game. So I think DFS, I mean, he has taken high volume of shots over the last few games. You look at his last, since the playoffs started, he took 7 in game 1, but then 11, 12, 7, 11, 13, 10. Most of those shots are from 3. He had 9 threes against the Jazz, 7, 6, 7, 9, 6 in the last game. So he hits a couple threes. You're already basically halfway to this prop. And like I said, the minutes are going to be there. So he's going to be on the floor. It's just a question of, does Luka find him enough? This has been like a money prop, I feel like, the whole playoffs with him. So I'm going to roll it with it again today.
Yeah, it's funny you're rattling off the game log. I'm also looking at the game log, trying to see a different angle. I was thinking, because I was looking at DFS also, I'm just afraid that this is a game where the Mavs just can't hit like water if they fell out of a boat.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and I don't know the number, and if I take it, I'll tweet it out, but they played some Finney Smith at the 5 because they were just like, in the fourth quarter, they're like, no one can stop Aiden. Why not just go like super athletic anyway? And, Finney Smith averaged over 6 rebounds in the first round against Utah. He had 6 rebounds in game 1. What about like points and rebounds? Forget assists because, he averaged close to 3 in the first round, but I'm going to kind of, maybe with Luka not fully healthy, didn't have the ball as much. Like, I'm potentially looking at Finney Smith, depending on the number, points and rebounds over, because I do think Finney Smith is the X factor for the Mavs. I think he's going to get a lot of reps, both shooting from 3. You mentioned the high output from 3. So I'm with you on this. I like this. I'm actually going to go with an under, though, on Phoenix. And it may sound counterintuitive to my other play. I'm going to go Chris Paul under 9.5 assists. It's minus 120, but if you look at the assist leaders in game 1, Chris Paul only had 5. And Devin Booker seemed to be the primary ball handler more. And they were running a lot of screen and roll to get Kleber involved in these pick and rolls. And that may actually bring, that Finney Smith prop more in if they end up sitting Kleber. But Booker was the one getting the assist because they were blitzing Booker out of the pick and roll. He was finding the open shooters, the Jay Crowders, the Cam Johnson coverage on the outside. Chris Paul played under 30 minutes in this game. 9.5 is a lot. And I know he was getting those numbers in the first round against New Orleans, but this is a different matchup. It just doesn't seem like the Mavs are giving Chris Paul the doubles that, he was getting. And also Devin Booker now playing and, seems to be, I won't say fully healthy, but healthy enough to really man the ball and, control the reps. Chris Paul might be taking more of a back seat in the series. So 9.5 is just super high. It's not like he was getting a lot of assist chances anyway. He only had 5, like I said, in game 1. I kind of like this under. I think that, the Mavs are going to be more focused on rushing Booker off the ball. So I like Chris Paul under 9.5 assists. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind it. You make a great point about how he played a lot more off the ball. I also think the foul trouble kind of hurt him a little bit in game 1, but it seemed like the Mavs were like trying to make the Suns like their way. They were like, okay, if you're just going to beat us with DeAndre and beat us with DeAndre Ayton, like, it's fine, because they knew they couldn't guard him anyway. But CP3 really wasn't involved in that action. It seemed like he was more hunting a shot. I think he finished with 19 points, took 13 shots. Like, we don't really see Chris Paul that aggressive when Devin Booker's normally playing, so I don't mind that. And one note on your DFS, you're looking points and rebounds. So a WinBet, you can get him 15 plus points and rebounds. I believe it's at minus 105. I got to get it back up on my screen.
That's something I might be interested in.
18 plus at minus 125. So 18 plus at minus 125.
So it's kind of right at that, like 12 and 6.
12 and 6. Yeah. So
I might be
terrible. Not terrible.
If he goes cold from 3, but still racks up even like, because I think he might have a big rebounding night.
What do you have? 6 boards in game 1?
Yeah. I think he might have a big rebounding output, especially if they go small. So I almost like the rebounds more than the points. So that's why I almost want to put them together, just in case the points don't get there. We also get the rebounds. So I'm going to think about that 18 plus.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. You look at some of his game logs in the Jazz series: 8 boards, 6 boards, 10 boards in game 6. Like, he was clearly doing the work on the board. So I don't mind that at all. I really think like he has been so important for them this year. I think they're so
Yeah.
lucky they locked him up already because he probably would have made himself even more money if he had gotten
Yeah,
to free
he's
agency
had a
this
good
offseason.
postseason.
Yeah. So, yeah. Like we said, he's going to play like 35, 40 minutes regardless. So
But
it's a
yes,
good play.
back to Chris Paul though. I think that this is more of a Booker.
Yeah.
The Mavs are going to be intent on getting the ball out of Booker's hands. That leads to more Chris Paul hunting mismatches. He's going to get his shot. So I like Chris Paul under 9.5 assists. Now to go completely contrary to that, it would seem my other best bet for the night is Suns team total over 111. You get that win bet at -110, your standard VIG. Again, we were just talking about it. It felt like the Suns were just going through the motions and getting whatever they wanted. It just felt like it was light work for them. Aiden was just pouring the ball in. Chris Paul was getting his jumper. Booker, everyone was open on the perimeter. It didn't feel like the Suns necessarily shot above their head. It just felt like they were cashing on their open jumpers. They scored 121 in this game. I think that they might be sitting on a big performance. I think that in this series, the way you could attack Dallas, and they almost might be content letting up 115, 120 points, saying, we'll try and match you and outshoot you from the perimeter. So I like the Suns team total over. I don't really want to get involved in the spread or anything like that. I think that if the Mavs win, it requires 120 points. I think the Suns get to 120 points anyway. So I'm going to take the Suns team total over as my third best bet. And Peter, I think your next and final best bet kind of is on that wavelength as well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on this. And that's why I'm taking DeAndre Ayton over 19.5 points. It's a little bit higher than you're normally going to see DeAndre Ayton's points at. He only averaged 17 during the regular season. But I mean, Ayton's last few games, he's just been absolutely dominant. He shot 12 for 20 in game one of this series at 25 points. And he scored 20 or more points in 5 of his 7 playoff games. One of the games he missed scoring 20 points, he had 19. So he's been right around that number basically the entire postseason. And the thing with Ayton that you have to look at, like we've talked about a little bit, is the Mavs do not have a single body that can match up with him. Like Dwight Powell basically got played off the floor because he couldn't hang with Ayton. Maxi Kleber, much better shooter than Dwight Powell. He is much smaller than Dwight Powell, cannot hang with Ayton. They seemed completely content with like, hey, we're just going to let DeAndre Ayton get whatever he wants inside. Like 20 shots for DeAndre Ayton is like crazy volume for him. Like I believe he was 10 of 13 in game 6 against the Pelicans and finished with 20 plus points. So like if you're going to see him get 15 plus shots and they're all going to be bunnies, good looks around the rim, I mean, go ahead. The Mavs are basically conceding that they cannot stop him inside. So I like him over 19.5 points. There's, I believe his points and rebounds is around like 30, 31. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to play that too. I'm not as confident with him as a rebounder because he has some games where he looks like, he could win the rebounding title. And then the last game he had, I believe 0 or 1 boards with like 3 minutes to go in the first half. So there's a little bit of volatility there, but I think the points is just like, it's just going to be a nature of like the Mavs have to decide, do we risk giving up open threes to Cam Johnson and Jay Crowder off of dribble drives, or do we just let them give DeAndre and layups? I think they'd much prefer to let him take layups. So going to back the volume he had in game 1 and hope he gets it again in game 2.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the Mavs are going to try and make this again like a math problem, try and win by hitting a lot more threes than the Suns do and contain the Suns to a ton of 2-point shots. Also kind of goes with your DFS adjustment. Maybe he ends up playing the 5 on Aiden and just seeding those layups and hope they can hit some threes on the other end. But so it seems like we like the Suns kind of in some fashion. We think that they're going to get what they want. Well, also the community likes the Suns -6. Get that over at WinBet. The community's on the Suns. They think that they're going to roll. They're going to go up 2-0. So, Pete, looks like we're taking Phoenix also. I'm basically all in on some Phoenix props and all that. But before we wrap up, let's go through our best bets one more time in case you missed it. Pete, your one baseball play and all your NBA plays for tonight. Let's hear them.
Yeah, taking Yusei Kikuchi under 4.5 strikeouts against the Yankees. We got James Harden under 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Dorian Finney-Smith over 12.5 points, and then DeAndre Ayton over 19.5 points tonight.
Great stuff from Pete. I'm on Harden's under pra as well. I'm on CP3 under 9.5 assists. I'm also on the Sixers team total under 100.5, and also the Suns team total over 111. And as well, the community, they selected Suns -6. And that's our show. Tomorrow, we have Ian and Donovan on for Thursday's Daily Betslip. Forgot for a second it was Wednesday, but you can also check out Ian and Donovan on this YouTube channel, which you should definitely like and subscribe to. They are going through Rookie and the Vet. They're previewing the NHL Stanley Cup first round. So make sure you check that out as you get ready. But also 7 o'clock, I'm back on the YouTube page with Ian and Amy Kaplan, Fanside MMA editor. We're doing Jab, Cross, Hook. We're previewing UFC 274 this weekend. We're interviewing welterweight Gabe Green off of Victory. So make sure you're checking that out at 7 o'clock Eastern. And Pete, best of luck on your bets tonight. Go Suns, go overs, boo Sixers. Let's have a winning night. Let's get back on track.
Let's go like 130, 120 in Suns Mavs. That get everybody
all the props hit, except for Chris Paul unders. Chris Paul unders.
That's right. That's right. No Chris Paul.
Everyone else go over.
Devin Booker triple-double. That's what we'll take instead of Chris Paul. There you go.
All right, guys. We will see you later on the BetSide YouTube page. Make sure you like and subscribe.